The coffee cup shook in Nadia's hand as she heard her own name spoken through the thin office wall. She had not meant to listen. She had only stopped to tie her shoe outside the meeting room, and then his voice reached her, calm and careless, talking to a friend about people who worked too hard to be noticed. He said he had never really seen her at all. 2 years of her life fell apart in that one sentence. Nadia worked on the same floor as Adam for 2 years. She learned his coffee order before he had to say it. She remembered his birthday every single year and left a small gift on his desk without a card, because she was too shy to sign her name. She stayed late more times than she could count, helping him finish reports that were not even her responsibility, telling herself it did not matter who got the credit as long as he needed her. Adam never asked why the coffee always appeared at the right time. He never wondered who left the gift. He was a man who moved fast through life, chasing promotions, chasing approval from people above him, chasing anything that looked like success. He barely looked at the people walking beside him. Nadia was one of many faces in the office to him. Pleasant, helpful, forgettable. That morning started like any other. Nadia arrived early, as she always did, and placed his coffee on the corner of his desk before he walked in. She smiled to herself, imagining the small nod he sometimes gave her, the only reward she ever expected. She sat down at her own desk and opened her laptop, pretending to work while she waited for him to notice. He walked in 10 minutes later, laughing loudly with his friend Farid, who worked on a different team but often stopped by to talk about weekend plans. Adam did not look at his desk. He did not look at Nadia. He kept talking, something about a project deadline, something about a client dinner, words that meant nothing to her because all she could hear was how easily he ignored what she had done. She told herself it was fine. She told herself every single day for 2 years. But that day, something in her chest felt tighter than usual, as if her patience had finally reached its limit and did not know how to stretch any further. At lunch, she sat with her closest friend, Lily, who worked in the design department down the hall. Lily had watched this pattern for a long time, and she was tired of staying quiet about it. "You cannot keep doing this to yourself," Lily said, stirring her salad without much interest in eating it. "He does not even know your last name properly." Nadia laughed, though it did not feel funny. "He knows my last name." "Does he?" Lily asked. "When was the last time he asked you a single question about your life, your family, your day, anything?" Nadia opened her mouth to answer and found nothing to say. She tried to remember one real conversation, one moment where Adam had asked about her instead of talking about himself, and she could not find a single memory that fit. "Maybe today is different," she whispered, more to convince herself than to answer Lily. It was not different. That afternoon, a meeting was called for the marketing team, and Nadia prepared everything the night before, staying until 9 to make sure the slides were perfect, the numbers accurate, the design clean. She wanted Adam's project to succeed because she believed, somewhere deep inside her, that if his project succeeded, some small part of that success belonged to her too. During the meeting, Adam presented the work as if he had built it alone. He thanked no one. He mentioned no names. When the director praised the clarity of the slides, Adam simply smiled and said thank you, taking credit that was never fully his. Nadia sat near the back of the room, watching him shine under a tension that her hands had helped create. She did not feel angry in that moment. She felt invisible, like a shadow standing behind a light that never noticed the shape giving it depth. After the meeting, she walked to the small kitchen on their floor to make tea, needing a moment alone before she had to return to her desk and pretend everything was normal. That was when she heard his voice through the wall, talking to Farid, laughing about something unrelated to her at first, and then mentioning her name so casually that it felt like a slap. "She works hard, that Nadia girl," Adam said. "Always around, always doing something. Honestly, I never really noticed her much. She is just there, you know? Background noise." Farid said something in response, something Nadia could not hear clearly through the wall, but it did not matter. The damage was already done. 2 years of quiet devotion reduced to background noise in one careless sentence from the man she had given so much of herself to. She stood frozen by the kitchen counter, the kettle boiling behind her, steam rising into the air like something trying to escape. Her eyes burned, but she refused to let herself cry in the office. She had cried enough in private, in her car, in her apartment, always alone, always hiding her feelings from everyone including herself. She walked back to her desk without making the tea. She sat down, opened her laptop, and stared at the screen without seeing anything on it. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, but her mind was somewhere else entirely, replaying his words over and over. Background noise, background noise, background noise. Lily noticed something was wrong the moment she passed by Nadia's desk on her way out for the evening. She stopped and crouched beside the chair, lowering her voice. "What happened?" she asked. Nadia shook her head, unable to explain it yet. "Nothing. I am just tired." Lily did not believe her, but she also knew Nadia needed time before she could talk about painful things. She squeezed her friend's shoulder gently and promised to call her later that night. The office slowly emptied as the evening arrived. Nadia stayed behind, as she often did, though tonight, she had no real work left to finish. She simply did not want to go home yet, afraid that the silence of her apartment would make the pain feel even larger than it already did. She looked around the empty office, the desks quiet, the computer screens dark, and thought about all the small moments she had collected over 2 years like treasures, believing they meant something. The coffee, the gift left without a name, the late nights spent helping him shine. None of it had built anything real. It had only built a version of him in her mind that never truly existed. Her phone buzzed with a message from Lily. "Come over tonight. Do not sit alone with this." Nadia looked at the message for a long moment before typing back a simple reply. "Okay." She packed her bag slowly, turned off her computer, and walked toward the elevator, passing Adam's now empty desk on the way. The coffee cup she had left that morning sat there, untouched, cold, exactly like the man who never noticed who had made it for him. As she reached the elevator, the doors opened and Adam stepped out, phone in hand, still smiling from whatever conversation he had just finished. He looked up and saw her standing there. "Hey," he said casually, the way he always did, without any awareness of what his words had done to her only hours earlier. "Heading home?" Nadia looked at him, really looked at him, for what felt like the first time in a long while. She saw a man who had never once looked back at her the same way. "Yes," she said simply, stepping into the elevator without waiting for him to join her. The doors closed between them, and for the first time in 2 years, Nadia felt something other than hope when she thought about Adam. She felt the quiet, painful beginning of letting go. That night, sitting in Lily's apartment with a cup of tea going cold in her hands, Nadia finally told her friend everything she had overheard. Lily listened without interrupting, her expression growing more serious with every word. "Background noise," Lily repeated once Nadia finished. "He said that about you." Nadia nodded, staring at the floor. Lily reached over and took her hand. "Then it is time you stopped waiting for someone who will never turn the volume up for you." Nadia did not respond right away. Somewhere inside her, a small door was closing, slowly, painfully, but closing all the same. She did not know yet what would come next, what new chapter waited beyond the walls of 2 wasted years. But she knew one thing clearly for the first time in a long while. She could not keep living for a man who did not know she existed. Later that night, lying awake in Lily's spare room, Nadia stared at the ceiling and let her mind wander back through small memories she had never allowed herself to examine closely before. She thought about the office party from the previous winter, when she had spent an entire evening standing near Adam, laughing at his jokes, refilling his drink, while he spoke almost exclusively to people who could help his career. She thought about the times she had canceled plans with Lily, simply because Adam mentioned he might need help finishing something before a deadline, plans that Adam never once acknowledged or thanked her for rearranging her life to support. Each memory added another small crack to the picture she had built of him in her mind, a picture painted with hope and selective attention, rather than honest observation. She had seen only the parts of him she wanted to see, ignoring the pattern that had been clear from the very beginning. A man who moved through the world taking what he needed without pausing to consider who gave it to him. By the time sleep finally found her, Nadia felt exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with the late hour. It was the exhaustion of finally facing something true after avoiding it for far too long, the heavy but necessary tiredness that comes just before healing begins. The phone rang 3 times before Nadia answered it, her voice rough from the tears she had finally let herself cry the night before. It was her manager, calling early, asking if she could come in an hour before her usual time to help prepare files for a client visit. She agreed without much thought, grateful for a reason to leave her apartment before her mind could wander back to the kitchen wall and the words that still echoed inside her. The morning air felt sharp against her face as she walked to the office, her bag heavier than usual, though nothing inside it had changed. It was her heart that felt weighted down, carrying 2 years of quiet hope that had crumbled in a single afternoon. She told herself she would be fine. She told herself this every morning now, like a small prayer she no longer fully believed. At the office, she worked quickly, sorting documents, printing reports, answering emails from clients who had no idea about the storm inside her. Work had always been her escape, a place where her hands could move faster than her thoughts, and today she needed that escape more than ever. Around mid-morning, Adam walked past her desk without stopping, deep in conversation with someone from another department. He did not glance at her, did not offer his usual casual greeting, and for the first time, his silence did not hurt as much as she expected. It confirmed something she was only beginning to accept. He truly did not see her, not because he was distracted that particular morning, but because he never had. Lily found her during the lunch break, carrying 2 sandwiches even though Nadia had not asked for one. "You need to eat something," Lily said, placing the sandwich in front of her friend with the firmness of someone who refused to accept excuses. Nadia managed a small smile, the first real one in 2 days. "Thank you." They sat together near the window, watching people move along the street below, each lost in their own small worlds, unaware of anyone else's pain or joy. "I have been thinking about what you said last night," Nadia admitted after a while. "About waiting for someone who does not know I exist." Lily nodded slowly, giving her space to continue. "I do not know how to just stop," Nadia said. 2 years is a long time to build something in your mind, even if it was never real outside of it. "It takes time," Lily said gently. "But the first step is simple. Stop doing the things that keep you tied to him. Stop the coffee. Stop the birthday gifts. Stop staying late to help with his work." Nadia looked down at her hands, thinking about how strange it felt to imagine mornings without that small ritual, the coffee cup placed carefully on the corner of his desk, the quiet hope that today might be the day he finally noticed. "I do not know if I can just stop cold," she admitted. "But I can try to do less." "Less is a start," Lily said, squeezing her hand. That afternoon, Nadia noticed something different about herself as she walked back to her desk. For the first time in a long while, she did not glance toward Adam's office out of habit. She sat down, focused on her own tasks, and allowed herself to feel a small, unfamiliar sense of control over her own day. The following morning, she arrived at her usual time, but she did not stop by the coffee machine to prepare Adam's order. She made her own coffee, sat at her desk and began working through her tasks without the familiar detour that had defined her mornings for 2 years. Adam arrived later than usual, looking slightly tired, his tie loose around his neck. He walked past his desk, glanced at the empty spot where his coffee usually sat, and paused for a brief second, as if something felt off. Though he could not quite identify what it was, he shrugged it off and sat down, opening his laptop without another thought. Nadia watched from the corner of her eye, feeling a strange mixture of relief and sadness. Relief because she had finally taken a small step toward freeing herself. Sadness because even this small absence barely registered with him. A brief pause and nothing more. Throughout the day, she focused on her own work, completing tasks that had nothing to do with Adam's projects, tasks that belonged entirely to her own responsibilities. She felt lighter by the afternoon, though the feeling was fragile, like a small flame that could easily be blown out by a single glance from him. That glance came just before the end of the day. Adam walked toward her desk, something unusual in itself, and stopped in front of her. "Hey," he said, "do you have those numbers from last week's report? I need them for a meeting tomorrow." Nadia looked up at him, feeling the familiar pull toward helping him, toward proving her usefulness, toward earning even a small piece of his attention. But she remembered Lily's words, and she remembered the sentence that had broken something inside her 2 days earlier. "I sent that report to the shared folder last week," she said calmly. "It should still be there." Adam blinked, clearly expecting a more immediate offer of help, the kind she had always given without hesitation. "Right," he said, seeming slightly confused by her response. "I will check there then." He walked away, and Nadia felt her heart pounding, not from fear, but from the strange courage of setting a small boundary for the first time in 2 years. It did not feel triumphant exactly, but it felt like something new, something that belonged entirely to her. Over the following days, Nadia continued making small changes. She left the office at a reasonable time instead of staying late. She stopped remembering Adam's schedule and instead focused on organizing her own calendar. She spent her lunch breaks with Lily or reading quietly by the window, allowing herself moments of peace that did not depend on Adam noticing her. It was not easy. There were moments when old habits pulled at her, when she almost reached for his favorite coffee order out of instinct, when she almost stayed late without thinking simply because that had become her pattern. But each time, she caught herself, and each time, it became slightly easier to choose herself instead. One evening, as she prepared to leave the office at her new, healthier hour, she ran into Farid near the elevator. He was Adam's friend, though she had rarely spoken to him directly beyond brief greetings in passing. "Leaving already?" he asked. his tone friendly rather than teasing. Nadia smiled, a genuine smile that surprised even herself, trying something new, leaving on time. Fareed laughed softly. That sounds like a good idea. Most people around here forget that life exists outside these walls. They rode the elevator down together, making light conversation about nothing important, the kind of easy talk that did not require her to prove anything or earn anyone's attention. It felt refreshingly simple, a small reminder that not every interaction needed to carry the weight of 2 years of hope. As they reached the lobby, Fareed glanced at her with a curious expression. You seem different lately. In a good way, I mean. Nadia considered his words for a moment before answering. I am trying to be different, she admitted. For myself, mostly. Fareed nodded, understanding something in her tone that he did not push further to explore. That is a good reason to change, he said simply, before offering a friendly goodbye and heading toward the parking area. Nadia walked home that evening, with a strange lightness in her chest, a feeling she had not experienced in longer than she could remember. It was not happiness exactly, not yet, but it was something close to hope. Hope that belonged entirely to her own future rather than tangled up in someone else's indifference. Lily called her that night, checking in as she always did. How was today? Lily asked. Better, Nadia admitted. I set a small boundary with Adam. It felt strange, but good. That is huge, Lily said, her voice warm with pride. What changed his reaction? He barely noticed, Nadia said honestly. But I noticed. That is what matters right now. Lily was quiet for a moment before responding. You are starting to choose yourself. That is the most important thing that has happened in 2 years. Nadia smiled into the phone, feeling the truth of those words settle somewhere deep inside her chest. She still had a long way to go before the ache of 2 wasted years fully disappeared, but for the first time, she believed she was walking in the right direction, toward a future that did not depend on being noticed by someone who never truly saw her at all. As she prepared for bed that night, she thought about Fareed's brief kindness in the elevator, the easy conversation that asked nothing of her. It was a small moment, barely worth remembering on any other day. But tonight, it lingered in her mind, like the first quiet note of a song she had not yet learned the words to. She did not know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in a long while, she fell asleep without replaying Adam's careless words in her mind. Instead, she thought about small steps, boundaries, and the strange, fragile beginning of a life built entirely around her own choices. The following weekend, Lily insisted on taking her shopping, claiming they both needed new clothes for spring, though Nadia suspected the real purpose was simply to get her out of the apartment and moving through the world again. They spent the afternoon wandering between small shops, trying on dresses neither of them truly needed, laughing over ridiculous hats in a shop window, sharing a plate of pastries at a small cafe on the corner. For a few hours, Nadia forgot entirely about Adam, about coffee cups left cold on empty desks, about background noise and invisible effort. She simply existed as herself, a woman enjoying an afternoon with her closest friend, free from the constant, quiet calculation of how to earn someone else's approval. That evening, walking home with a small shopping bag swinging from her wrist, Nadia realized this was the first weekend in longer than she could remember that she had not spent thinking about Adam's schedule, wondering if he needed anything, planning small gestures meant to catch his attention. The realization did not arrive with triumph or celebration. It arrived quietly, gently, like a window opening to let in air that had been missing from a room for far too long. The knock on her apartment door came late on a Friday evening, unexpected and sharp enough to make Nadia jump from the couch where she had been reading. She was not expecting anyone. Lily was out of town visiting her parents for the weekend, and no one else usually visited without calling first. She walked to the door cautiously and looked through the small peephole, surprised to find Fareed standing outside, holding 2 cups of coffee. She opened the door slowly, confusion clear on her face. Fareed? How did you even get my address? He smiled sheepishly, lifting the cup slightly as if offering a peace treaty. Lily gave it to me. She said you might need a friend this weekend since she cannot be here. Nadia stood there for a moment, unsure how to respond. She barely knew Fareed beyond a few brief conversations near the elevator and around the office. Yet something about his presence did not feel intrusive. It felt oddly comfortable, like an unexpected but welcome surprise. I brought your favorite, he added, holding out one of the cups. Lily mentioned you like caramel more than anything else. She accepted the cup, still slightly stunned, and stepped aside to let him in. Their conversation started slowly, careful and polite, the kind of talk between 2 people who did not yet know each other well but wanted to. Fareed asked about her family, her hobbies, the books scattered across her coffee table, questions that Adam had never once asked her in 2 full years. Nadia found herself talking more than she expected, sharing small details about her childhood, her love for old mystery novels, her dream of one day traveling somewhere she had never been. Farid listened closely, asking follow-up questions that showed he was actually paying attention rather than waiting for his turn to speak. "You are a good listener," she said eventually, a little surprised by her own honesty. Farid shrugged modestly. "I like learning about people. Most people have interesting stories if you actually ask." The evening passed quickly, filled with easy laughter and comfortable silences, the kind that did not feel awkward or forced. By the time Farid left, promising to check in on her over the weekend, Nadia realized she had not thought about Adam even once during their entire conversation. That realization stayed with her long after he left, settling into her chest like a small, warm surprise. For 2 years, thoughts of Adam had filled every quiet moment of her life, and now, for a few hours, someone else had occupied that space instead, without demanding anything from her, without making her feel invisible. Over the following weeks, Farid's presence in her life became a steady, welcome pattern. He would stop by her desk occasionally, not to ask for favors or reports, but simply to see how her day was going. He remembered small details she mentioned in passing, like her preference for window seats or her dislike of overly spicy food, remembering them without effort in a way that Adam never had. Lily noticed the change immediately when she returned from her trip. "You seem lighter," she said one afternoon, studying her friend's face carefully. "What happened while I was gone?" Nadia hesitated before answering, unsure how to explain the strange comfort Farid's presence had brought into her life. "Farid stopped by a few times," she admitted. "We talked. It was nice." Lily's eyebrows rose with interest. "Nice how?" "Just nice," Nadia said, though a small smile betrayed more than her words admitted. "He listens. He remembers things. It feels different." Lily studied her for a moment longer before smiling knowingly. "Different is good, especially after everything you have been through." Nadia nodded, though a small worry lingered in the back of her mind. She was not ready to trust easily again, not after 2 years of hoping for someone who never truly saw her. Yet Farid's steady kindness continued to chip away at the walls she had built, slowly and without pressure, allowing her to open up at her own pace rather than demanding immediate trust. One afternoon, as Nadia worked at her desk, Adam approached unexpectedly, holding a folder in his hand. "I heard you have been busy lately," he said, his tone slightly awkward, as if he was uncertain how to approach the conversation after weeks of her quiet distance. Nadia looked up, meeting his eyes calmly. "Just focusing on my own projects." Adam nodded slowly, glancing around as if searching for something familiar that had recently disappeared from his routine. "Right, well, if you ever have time, I could use some help organizing the client files for next month." Nadia considered his request for a moment, remembering the countless nights she had once spent helping him without hesitation, without expecting anything in return except a small nod of acknowledgement that rarely came. "I have my own deadlines this month," she said politely. "Maybe check with the new intern. She has been looking for extra projects." Adam blinked, clearly unused to hearing anything other than immediate agreement from her. "Sure," he said eventually, forcing a small smile. "No problem." He walked away, and Nadia felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and sadness settle within her. Satisfaction because she had protected her own time and energy. Sadness because a part of her still remembered the version of herself who would have dropped everything just to feel useful to him. That evening, Farid invited her to a small gathering with a few of his friends, a casual dinner at a quiet restaurant near the city center. Nadia hesitated at first, unused to social gatherings outside her small circle with Lily, but something in Farid's easy invitation made her feel welcome rather than pressured. The dinner turned out to be one of the most enjoyable evenings she had experienced in a long time. Farid's friends were warm and funny, filling the table with laughter and stories that had nothing to do with office politics or unspoken hopes. Nadia found herself laughing freely, without the constant awareness of trying to earn someone's approval that had defined her interactions with Adam for so long. Toward the end of the evening, as the group began saying their goodbyes, Farid walked Nadia to her car, the night air cool and comfortable around them. "Thank you for coming tonight," he said, his voice sincere. "I know social things can feel overwhelming sometimes." Nadia smiled, surprised by how true his words felt. "I actually had a really good time. Thank you for inviting me." Farid studied her for a moment, something thoughtful crossing his expression. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course," she said, curious about the sudden shift in his tone. "Are you doing okay?" he asked gently. "Lily mentioned some things happened at work, and I noticed you seemed distant when I first started talking to you." I just want to make sure you are all right. Nadia considered his question carefully, appreciating the genuine concern behind it. I am getting there, she admitted honestly. It has been a difficult few months, but things are starting to feel a little lighter. Fareed nodded, respecting her honesty without pushing for more details than she was ready to share. I am glad to hear that, he said. And for what it is worth, I think you deserve someone who notices you without needing a reason. His words settled deeply within her, touching a part of her heart that had ached quietly for 2 long years. She did not respond immediately, unsure how to express the emotions his simple statement had stirred within her. Thank you, she finally said softly, meeting his eyes with a warmth she had not felt in longer than she could remember. They said their goodbyes, and as Nadia drove home that night, she thought about how different her life felt compared to just a few weeks earlier. The ache of Adam's careless words had not completely disappeared, but it no longer occupied every corner of her mind. Instead, small moments of genuine connection with Fareed had begun filling those empty spaces, offering comfort she had not realized she desperately needed. Over the following days, Nadia noticed herself smiling more often, laughing more freely, and approaching each day with a lightness that had been missing for far too long. She still worked hard, still handled her responsibilities with the same dedication she always had, but now that dedication came from her own ambition, rather than a desperate need to be noticed by someone who never truly saw her. Meanwhile, Adam continued his usual routine, seemingly unaware of the quiet transformation happening around him. He still moved quickly through the office, still chased approval from those above him, still remained largely oblivious to the changes taking place in the people around him, including the woman who had once dedicated so much of herself to earning his attention. Nadia no longer waited for him to notice her. She was too busy building a life that finally included space for her own happiness, one small step at a time. A few days later, Nadia's manager called her into a small meeting room to discuss a new project that had just been approved, a project that would require someone organized, detail-oriented, and capable of managing several moving parts at once. Nadia listened carefully as her manager described the scope of the work, feeling a small flicker of excitement she had not experienced in a long while. Excitement that belonged entirely to her own potential, rather than any hope of impressing someone else. I think you would be perfect for leading this, her manager said, sliding a folder across the table. Your work over the past few months has been excellent, and I want to give you the chance to take real ownership of something. Nadia accepted the folder with a steady hand, though her heart raced with a mixture of nervousness and genuine pride. Thank you, she said sincerely. I would love the opportunity. One quiet Sunday afternoon, before this new project began, Fareed had invited her to help him plant a small garden on his apartment balcony, an idea that struck Nadia as sweetly ordinary, compared to the grand romantic gestures she had once quietly hoped for. They knelt together over small pots of soil, laughing as they argued playfully about how deep to plant the seeds, dirt smudged across both their hands. I have never actually kept a plant alive before, Fareed admitted, examining a small basil seedling with mock seriousness. Nadia laughed, brushing a strand of hair from her face and leaving a faint streak of soil across her cheek in the process. Then it is a good thing you have me to help, she teased. He looked at her for a long moment, something soft and warm passing across his expression before he spoke again. I am glad you are here, he said simply, no dramatic declaration, just quiet honesty. Nadia felt her chest fill with a gentle warmth that had nothing frantic or desperate about it, nothing like the anxious hope she had once carried towards someone who never noticed her. This felt steady and safe, like something that did not need to be earned through constant effort, only nurtured gently, the same way they nurtured the small seeds now resting in the soil between them. Walking back to her desk on Monday morning, after receiving news of her new project, she felt lighter than she had in months, buoyed by recognition that had nothing to do with romantic hope and everything to do with her own hard work finally being seen. She thought briefly of Adam, of how different this feeling was from the quiet ache of leaving gifts without a name, and she smiled to herself, understanding clearly for the first time that being noticed for the right reasons felt entirely different from chasing attention that was never going to come. The message from Fareed arrived just as Nadia stepped out of a long client meeting, her phone buzzing with an invitation to dinner that evening. Nothing formal, just the two of them at a small restaurant near the river. She read it twice, smiling before she even realized she was doing it, and typed back a quick yes without hesitation. Weeks had passed since their first conversation over caramel coffee, and what had started as a friendly gesture had slowly grown into something Nadia found herself looking forward to more than she wanted to admit. Fareed never pressured her, never rushed the pace of their growing closeness, allowing trust to build naturally between them, in a way that felt entirely different from anything she had experienced with Adam. That evening, sitting across from Fareed at a small table overlooking the river, Nadia noticed how easily conversation flowed between them. He asked about her day with genuine curiosity, listened attentively as she described a difficult client interaction, and offered thoughtful advice without making her feel judged or inadequate. "You handled that really well," he said, after she finished describing how she had calmly resolved a tense situation with an unhappy client. "Most people would have panicked." Nadia smiled, warmth spreading through her chest at his sincere praise. "Thank you. It helps having someone who actually believes I can handle things." Fareed reached across the table, gently taking her hand. "I do believe that," he said softly. "I have believed that since the first time I really talked to you." The moment felt significant, charged with unspoken feelings that had been quietly building between them for weeks. Nadia looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of hesitation or doubt, finding only warmth and sincerity reflected back at her. "I have been afraid to trust someone again," she admitted quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "After everything with Adam, I convinced myself that caring about someone always meant being invisible to them." Fareed squeezed her hand gently, his expression serious and caring. "I promise you," he said, "I see you. Every part of you. Your strength, your kindness, the way you light up when you talk about the books you love. None of that is invisible to me." Tears gathered in Nadia's eyes, though they were different from the tears she had cried weeks earlier over Adam's careless words. These tears felt like relief, like healing, like the slow closing of a wound that had ached for far too long. "Thank you," she whispered, squeezing his hand back. From that evening forward, their relationship deepened steadily, built on honesty, mutual respect, and genuine care that neither of them tried to hide. Fareed became a consistent, comforting presence in her life, someone who celebrated her small victories and supported her through difficult days without ever making her feel like a burden. At work, Nadia continued establishing healthy boundaries, focusing on her own career growth rather than losing herself in helping others succeed at her own expense. She took on new responsibilities that challenged her skills, impressed her superiors with her dedication, and slowly began building a reputation as someone capable and reliable in her own right, separate from any association with Adam's projects. Adam, meanwhile, seemed increasingly puzzled by the changes surrounding him. His reports, once polished effortlessly with Nadia's quiet assistance, now required significantly more of his own time and effort. He struggled to meet deadlines that had once felt effortless, unaware of how much invisible support he had lost when Nadia finally stopped offering herself so freely. One afternoon, as Nadia organized files for an upcoming presentation, Grace, a coworker from another department who occasionally interacted with Adam, stopped by her desk with a curious expression. "Can I ask you something?" Grace said, glancing around to ensure their conversation remained private. "Of course," Nadia replied, setting aside her paperwork. "Adam has been struggling a lot lately with his projects," Grace said carefully. "He mentioned something about missing your help with the reports. Did something happen between you two?" Nadia considered her response carefully, unwilling to share private details about her personal healing journey with someone she barely knew. "Things changed," she said simply. "I needed to focus more on my own work." Grace nodded thoughtfully, seeming to understand more than she directly stated. "That makes sense. He seems a bit lost without the extra support, honestly. I do not think he ever realized how much he depended on you." Nadia offered a polite smile, though internally, Grace's words confirmed something she had already suspected. Adam had never appreciated her contributions because he had never truly acknowledged them as separate from his own efforts. It had taken her stepping back completely for him to notice the absence of support he had always taken for granted. That evening, Nadia shared the conversation with Fareed over dinner, expecting some reaction of vindication or satisfaction. Instead, Fareed simply listened, offering quiet support without dwelling excessively on Adam's struggles. "How do you feel about that?" he asked gently, more interested in her emotional response than the details of Adam's difficulties. Nadia thought carefully before answering. "Honestly," she said slowly, "I feel a bit sad for him, but mostly, I feel proud of myself for finally choosing my own worth over trying to prove it to someone who never valued it." Fareed smiled warmly, admiration clear in his expression. "That is exactly the growth I have watched happen in you these past few weeks. It is beautiful to witness." Nadia blushed slightly, grateful for his consistent support and gentle encouragement throughout her journey of healing and self-discovery. Their relationship continued deepening naturally, built on a foundation of mutual respect that felt entirely different from the one-sided dynamic she had endured with Adam for 2 long years. A few weeks later, the company announced an upcoming charity gala, an annual event where employees from different departments gathered to celebrate achievements and support a local community cause. Nadia had attended these events in previous years alone, often standing quietly on the sidelines while Adam moved confidently through the crowd, networking and shaking hands with important guests, never once inviting her to join him. This year felt different. Farid asked if she would attend the gala with him, not as colleagues attending separately, but as two people who genuinely wanted to share the evening together. Nadia agreed eagerly, looking forward to the event with anticipation rather than the quiet dread she had felt in previous years. As the evening of the gala approached, Nadia found herself excited to prepare, choosing an elegant dress that made her feel confident and beautiful, a stark contrast to the plain, forgettable outfits she had once worn while trying to remain unnoticed and safe from disappointment. The night of the gala arrived, filled with soft lighting, elegant music, and the comfortable hum of conversation throughout the venue. Nadia walked in beside Farid, feeling a sense of confidence and belonging that had been missing from her life for far too long. They mingled together throughout the evening, laughing easily, dancing to slow songs, and enjoying each other's company without the constant awareness of trying to earn someone else's attention or approval. For the first time at one of these events, Nadia felt genuinely present, fully enjoying the celebration rather than watching quietly from the sidelines. Across the room, Adam arrived later than most guests, dressed sharply as always, immediately falling into his usual pattern of networking and impressing important colleagues. He moved through the crowd with practiced confidence, unaware that someone familiar stood only a short distance away, radiating a happiness he had never once helped create. As the evening progressed, Nadia and Farid found themselves near the center of the dance floor, sharing a quiet, joyful moment together as slow music filled the room. Nadia laughed at something Farid whispered close to her ear, her face glowing with genuine happiness, her eyes bright with a warmth that had been carefully rebuilt over weeks of healing and gentle care. It was in that exact moment, amidst the soft lighting and quiet laughter, that Adam happened to glance across the room, his eyes landing unexpectedly on the sight of Nadia smiling freely beside another man. Something shifted within him instantly, though he could not immediately identify the feeling settling uncomfortably in his chest. He watched, momentarily frozen, as Nadia laughed again, her happiness clearly genuine, entirely unrelated to him, entirely independent of any attention he had ever offered her. For the first time in 2 years, Adam truly saw her, not as background noise, not as a forgettable presence quietly supporting his success, but as a woman capable of radiant, genuine happiness, happiness he had never once contributed toward, happiness that now belonged entirely to someone else. He stood there, drink in hand, watching quietly from across the room, an unfamiliar and uncomfortable feeling settling deep within his chest, a feeling he was only beginning to understand as something dangerously close to regret. He set his drink down on a nearby table, no longer interested in networking with the important guests he had spent the earlier part of the evening courting. His mind kept circling back to small details, the way Nadia used to place his coffee exactly where he liked it without ever being asked, the quiet efficiency with which she once handled tasks he barely remembered assigning her, the countless small kindnesses he had accepted without a second thought, as if they simply appeared out of nowhere rather than from a person standing quietly beside him. He thought about the months since she had stepped back, the frustrating mornings scrambling for information he once received without effort, the reports that took twice as long without her quiet help. He had blamed those difficulties on bad luck, on a busier season, on anything except the obvious truth staring back at him now from across a crowded room. He had lost something valuable, and he had lost it entirely, because he never bothered to notice it while it was still his to appreciate. The glass slipped slightly in Adam's hand as Grace approached him from the side, her expression curious after noticing the strange, distracted look on his face. "You seem lost," Grace said, following his gaze across the room until she spotted what had captured his attention so completely. "Oh. Is that Nadia?" Adam blinked, quickly composing himself, though the discomfort in his chest remained. "Yeah," he said, his voice slightly unsteady. "She looks happy." Grace studied him carefully, sensing something deeper behind his simple observation. "She has seemed happier lately," Grace agreed. "Farid has been good for her, from what I have heard." Adam nodded slowly, though something about hearing Farid's name paired with Nadia's happiness created an uncomfortable tightness in his chest that he struggled to understand. "Farid," he repeated quietly. "They are together?" "Seems like it," Grace said, watching him closely. "Why, does that surprise you?" Adam hesitated, unsure how to answer honestly without revealing feelings he had not yet fully acknowledged, even to himself. "I guess I never really thought about Nadia that way," he admitted slowly. Grace raised an eyebrow, her curiosity deepening. "Did you ever think about her at all?" she asked directly, her tone gentle but pointed. The question caught Adam off guard, forcing him to confront something he had avoided facing for weeks. He thought about all the small things that had quietly changed around him recently, the missing coffee each morning, the reports that suddenly required significantly more of his own effort, the quiet absence of a presence he had never appreciated until it disappeared entirely. "Honestly," he admitted quietly, "I do not think I ever really saw her before tonight." Grace nodded, unsurprised by his confession. "That happens sometimes," she said. "People get so focused on their own goals that they miss the people quietly supporting them along the way." Adam remained silent, watching as Nadia and Fareed continued dancing across the room, her laughter carrying faintly through the music, each sound a small reminder of everything he had overlooked for 2 entire years. "I think I made a mistake," he said quietly, more to himself than to Grace. Grace studied him for a moment before responding carefully. "Mistakes can sometimes be fixed," she said, though her tone carried a note of caution. "But only if you are honest about what you actually want, and only if it is not too late." Adam did not respond immediately, his mind racing through memories he had never fully examined until that exact moment. He remembered small gestures he had dismissed without thought, kind words he had barely acknowledged, quiet support he had taken entirely for granted. Each memory now felt significant, weighted with meaning he had been too distracted to notice at the time. As the evening continued, Adam found himself unable to fully engage with the important conversations and networking opportunities surrounding him. His attention kept drifting back toward Nadia, watching her interact easily with Fareed, noticing details about her that he had somehow missed for 2 entire years. The warmth of her smile, the genuine kindness in her eyes, the quiet confidence she now carried, that had clearly grown through her connection with someone who valued her properly. Later that night, as the gala began winding down, Adam found himself standing near the exit, hoping for a chance to speak with Nadia privately before she left. When she finally approached the door, walking closely beside Fareed, their hands linked together comfortably, Adam stepped forward slightly, his heart pounding with a nervousness he rarely experienced. "Nadia," he said, his voice slightly unsteady. She turned toward him, her expression calm and composed, entirely different from the anxious, eager version of herself that had once desperately sought his attention. "Adam," she said politely, though without any of the warmth she had once reserved specifically for him. "Can we talk for a moment?" he asked, glancing briefly at Fareed, who remained beside Nadia with quiet, supportive patience. Nadia hesitated slightly before nodding. "Sure," she said, though her tone remained guarded. Fareed squeezed her hand gently before stepping aside, giving them space while remaining close enough to offer silent support if needed. Nadia turned back toward Adam, waiting for him to speak. "I wanted to say congratulations," Adam began awkwardly, unsure exactly how to express the complicated emotions swirling within him. "You seem really happy." "Thank you," Nadia said simply, her tone polite but distant. Adam hesitated, searching for the right words to express feelings he barely understood himself. "I also wanted to say," he continued slowly, "that I think I never really appreciated everything you did for me over the years. I am sorry for that." Nadia studied him carefully, searching his face for sincerity. His apology, though clearly genuine, arrived far too late to change anything meaningful between them. "Thank you for saying that," she said calmly. "I appreciate the apology." Adam nodded, though disappointment settled quietly within him at her measured, distant response. "Is there any chance," he began hesitantly, "that we could maybe start over sometime? As friends, or something more, if you were open to it?" Nadia's expression softened slightly, though her answer remained firm. "Adam," she said gently, "I spent 2 years hoping you would notice me, hoping you would see the person standing beside you every single day. I do not regret that time completely, because it taught me important things about my own worth, but I am not the same person who waited quietly in the background anymore." Adam's shoulders sagged slightly, understanding the weight of her words even as he struggled to accept them fully. "I understand," he said quietly. "I hope you find happiness too," Nadia added sincerely, her tone gentle despite the clear finality in her decision. "But it will not be with me." She turned and walked back toward Fareed, who welcomed her warmly, his arms settling naturally around her shoulders as they walked together toward the exit. Adam watched them leave, the uncomfortable weight of regret settling heavily within his chest, a feeling he suspected would linger far longer than he initially wanted to admit. Grace approached him quietly once Nadia and Fareed had disappeared through the doors, her expression sympathetic but honest. "That did not go how you hoped," she observed gently. Adam shook his head slowly. No, he admitted. It did not. Sometimes people give us chances for years, Grace said thoughtfully, and we do not realize their value until those chances are gone completely. Adam remained silent, absorbing the truth of her words as the gala continued around him, filled with laughter and celebration that felt distant and disconnected from the quiet ache settling within his chest. For the first time in his career, surrounded by colleagues and success, he felt an unfamiliar, uncomfortable sense of loss, understanding fully, for the first time, exactly what his blindness had cost him. He left the gala early that night, walking home alone through quiet streets, his mind replaying 2 years of missed opportunities, small kindnesses overlooked, and quiet devotion he had never once acknowledged until it was already gone. He passed a small coffee shop still open near the corner of his street, its warm light spilling onto the sidewalk, and he stopped for a moment, staring through the window at nothing in particular. He thought about how many mornings he had walked into the office and simply expected his coffee to be there, never once wondering about the hands that made it, the person who woke early enough to have it ready before he arrived. It seemed such a small thing to mourn, and yet it represented everything he had failed to see. 2 years of quiet care mistaken for something owed to him rather than something freely given. He did not go inside. He simply stood there a moment longer, then continued walking home through the cold, quiet streets, carrying the uncomfortable weight of a lesson learned far too late to change anything that truly mattered. Weeks passed after the gala, and Adam found himself struggling more than he expected with the quiet absence Nadia had left behind in every corner of his professional life. Reports that once came together effortlessly now required long hours of frustrating effort. Meetings felt less organized, presentations less polished, and though his colleagues never directly mentioned the change, he sensed their quiet awareness of his diminished performance. He tried reaching out to Nadia a few more times, careful and respectful, never pushing beyond polite conversation whenever their paths crossed at work. Each time, Nadia remained kind but firmly distant, treating him with the same professional courtesy she extended to any other coworker. Nothing more, nothing less. Adam gradually accepted that the closeness he now longed for had never truly existed between them in the way he wished it had. What he missed was not a relationship he had actively built, but rather a quiet, unconditional support system he had taken entirely for granted, one that could not simply be requested back into existence once it had been lost. Meanwhile, Nadia's life continued blossoming in directions she had never imagined possible during the years she spent quietly hoping for Adam's attention. Her relationship with Farid deepened steadily, built on honesty, mutual respect, and genuine care that grew stronger with each passing week. He continued supporting her ambitions at work, celebrating her successes without ever feeling threatened by her growing confidence and independence. At the office, Nadia's reputation flourished as she took on new responsibilities separate from her previous, unspoken role supporting Adam's projects. Her manager noticed her dedication and skill, eventually offering her a promotion to lead a small team on an important upcoming project, a recognition entirely earned through her own individual effort and talent. Nadia accepted the promotion with genuine excitement, sharing the news first with Lily, who celebrated enthusiastically, and then with Farid, who surprised her with a small dinner celebration at their favorite restaurant near the river. "I am so proud of you," Farid said warmly, raising his glass in a small toast. "You worked incredibly hard for this." Nadia smiled, gratitude and pride mixing warmly within her chest. "Thank you for believing in me, even when I struggled to believe in myself." Their relationship continued growing steadily over the following months, built on a foundation entirely different from the one-sided dynamic she had endured with Adam. Farid consistently showed up for her, remembered important details about her life, and celebrated her achievements without ever making her feel like her success threatened his own. One evening, several months after the charity gala, Farid invited Nadia to a quiet dinner at his apartment, preparing her favorite meal himself despite his limited cooking skills, filling the evening with laughter over his small culinary mistakes and genuine effort. After dinner, as they sat together on his small balcony overlooking the city lights, Farid grew unusually quiet, studying her with a soft, thoughtful expression. "Can I tell you something?" he asked gently. "Of course," Nadia replied, curious about the sudden shift in his tone. "I have never met someone like you," he said sincerely. "Someone who works so hard, cares so deeply, and still manages to stay kind despite everything life throws at her. I do not ever want to take that for granted." Nadia's eyes softened, touched deeply by his heartfelt words. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have shown me what it feels like to truly be seen and valued. I never want to take that for granted either." Farid reached for her hand, holding it gently as they watched the city lights twinkle below them. "I love you, Nadia," he said softly, his voice steady with sincerity. "Not because you are perfect, but because you are exactly who you are, strong, kind, and finally free to be your full self." Tears filled Nadia's eyes, though they carried none of the pain that had once defined her tears during the 2 years she spent waiting quietly for someone who never valued her properly. "I love you too," she whispered back, her voice filled with genuine happiness and peace. Their relationship continued flourishing steadily over the following year, built on honesty, mutual respect, and genuine partnership that neither of them ever took for granted. Nadia's career flourished alongside her personal happiness, each success building upon the confidence she had rediscovered through healing from her past experiences. Adam, meanwhile, continued struggling quietly with the consequences of his earlier blindness, eventually leaving the company for a different opportunity in another city, hoping for a fresh start away from constant reminders of everything he had overlooked and lost. Before leaving, he approached Nadia one final time, offering a sincere, humble apology for his past behavior, acknowledging fully the value of what he had once carelessly dismissed. "Thank you for teaching me an important lesson," he said quietly during their final conversation. "Even though the lesson came at a cost I deeply regret. I hope you continue building the happiness you deserve." Nadia accepted his apology graciously, understanding that holding on to resentment would only weigh down the beautiful life she had worked so hard to build. "I hope you find your own happiness too, Adam," she said sincerely. "And I hope you learn to truly see the people who matter before it becomes too late." Adam nodded, understanding fully the weight and truth behind her words, before saying his final goodbye and walking away from the life and opportunities he had once taken entirely for granted. Nadia watched him leave, feeling a quiet, peaceful closure settle within her chest, the final chapter of a painful 2-year journey finally closing completely. She turned back toward her own life, filled with genuine happiness, meaningful relationships, and a fulfilling career, built entirely on her own strength and worth. That evening she returned home to Farid, who greeted her with the same warm, genuine smile that had first begun healing her heart months earlier. As they sat together, sharing details about their respective days, Nadia felt profound gratitude for the journey that had led her to this exact moment. 2 years of quiet devotion toward someone who never truly saw her had eventually led her toward a life filled with genuine love, mutual respect, and personal fulfillment she had once believed impossible. The pain of those 2 years had not been wasted after all. It had taught her invaluable lessons about her own worth, ultimately guiding her toward a happiness far greater than anything she had once hoped to find in Adam's fleeting attention. As she settled into Farid's embrace that evening, watching the city lights glow softly outside their window, Nadia finally understood completely that true love does not require years of quiet waiting or desperate hope for someone else's attention. True love arrives naturally, built on mutual respect, genuine kindness, and the simple, powerful choice to truly see and value another person, exactly as they are. Her journey toward this beautiful ending had been difficult, filled with heartache and quiet resilience, but standing exactly where she now stood, surrounded by genuine love and hard-earned success, Nadia knew without any doubt that every difficult step had been worth it entirely. A year and a half later, spring arrived early in the city, filling the streets with the soft scent of blooming flowers and the warmth of longer, brighter days. Nadia stood on the small balcony of the apartment she now shared with Farid, watching the sunrise paint the sky in gentle shades of orange and pink, a cup of tea warming her hands. So much had changed since that painful morning when she overheard Adam's careless words through a thin office wall. The woman who once measured her worth by another person's attention had grown into someone entirely different, confident in her own value, secure in relationships built on mutual respect rather than quiet desperation. Her career had continued flourishing steadily. The small team she once led had grown significantly under her guidance, and she now held a respected position within the company, mentoring newer employees who reminded her occasionally of her younger self, eager and hardworking, though she made sure to teach them the importance of recognizing their own worth early, rather than waiting years to discover it painfully. Lily remained her closest friend throughout the journey, their bond growing even stronger through the years of shared laughter, honest conversations, and unwavering support during difficult times. Lily had recently become engaged herself, and Nadia found herself deeply involved in helping plan the upcoming wedding celebrations, grateful for the continued closeness between them. Farid entered the balcony quietly that morning, wrapping his arms gently around Nadia from behind, resting his chin softly against her shoulder, as they watched the sunrise together in comfortable silence. "Morning," he murmured softly, Morning, she replied, leaning back contentedly into his embrace. Their relationship had continued deepening steadily over the past year, built on the same honesty and mutual respect that had first drawn them together. They had learned to navigate challenges together, supporting each other through difficult days at work, celebrating small victories, and building a life together that felt genuinely balanced and fulfilling. A few months earlier, Farid had proposed during a quiet weekend trip to the countryside, choosing a peaceful moment away from any pressure or spectacle, simply asking her sincerely to spend the rest of her life beside him. Nadia had said yes without hesitation, her heart finally at peace after years of uncertainty and quiet heartache. As they stood together on the balcony that spring morning, Farid gently reminded her of their appointment later that day to finalize wedding details, an appointment that filled Nadia with genuine excitement rather than any lingering anxiety from her past experiences. "I still cannot believe how much has changed," Nadia admitted quietly, turning slightly within his embrace to meet his eyes. Farid smiled warmly, brushing a strand of hair gently from her face. "You built this change yourself," he said sincerely. "I just feel grateful to be part of the life you created." Nadia's heart swelled with gratitude, remembering clearly the painful uncertainty that had once defined her daily existence, waiting quietly for someone who never truly valued her presence. That difficult chapter felt distant now, replaced entirely by genuine happiness and security she had once believed impossible to achieve. Later that day, while running errands downtown, Nadia unexpectedly crossed paths with Grace, who had remained a friendly acquaintance throughout the years despite working in different departments after some company changes. "Nadia," Grace called out warmly, approaching with genuine excitement. "It has been ages. How have you been?" Nadia smiled brightly, embracing her old colleague warmly. "I have been wonderful, actually. Farid and I just got engaged." Grace's face lit up with genuine happiness. "That is amazing news. Congratulations. You truly deserve every bit of happiness coming your way." "Thank you," Nadia said sincerely, appreciating Grace's genuine warmth. "How about you? How have things been?" Grace shared updates about her own life, including a recent promotion and a budding relationship of her own, and the two women spent several minutes catching up warmly, filled with genuine mutual support and celebration of each other's happiness. Before parting ways, Grace hesitated slightly before mentioning something further. "You know," she said carefully, "I ran into Adam a while back. He mentioned he finally started truly appreciating the people around him in his new position. He said the lesson he learned here changed him for the better, even though it took losing something important to understand it fully." Nadia listened thoughtfully, feeling genuine peace rather than any lingering pain at the mention of her past experiences. "I am glad he found his own growth," she said sincerely. "Everyone deserves the chance to learn and become better." Grace nodded, smiling warmly at Nadia's genuine kindness and lack of bitterness. "You have grown so much," she observed gently. "I am really happy for you, Nadia." "Thank you, Grace," Nadia replied warmly, embracing her old colleague once more before continuing on with her day. As she walked back home that afternoon, Nadia reflected quietly on how far she had traveled since those painful early days of quiet devotion and eventual heartbreak. The journey had been difficult, filled with moments of doubt and quiet pain, but it had ultimately led her toward genuine happiness, self-worth, and a partnership built entirely on mutual respect and authentic love. That evening, as she and Farid sat together finalizing small details for their upcoming wedding, surrounded by soft candlelight and gentle laughter, Nadia felt profound gratitude for every difficult step of her journey. Each painful lesson had shaped her into someone stronger, wiser, and fully capable of recognizing and receiving genuine love when it finally arrived. As the evening wound down, Farid took her hands gently across the table, his expression warm and sincere. "I know your journey here was not easy," he said softly, "but I am endlessly grateful you found your way toward choosing yourself, because that choice eventually led you toward us." Nadia smiled, tears of genuine happiness gathering softly in her eyes. "I am grateful too," she whispered. "Every difficult moment led me exactly where I was always meant to be." They shared a quiet, tender moment together, filled with genuine love and mutual appreciation, before continuing their evening surrounded by warmth, laughter, and the comforting security of a relationship built on honesty and true partnership. Nadia's story, once defined by quiet heartache and unnoticed devotion, had transformed completely into a story of resilience, self-discovery, and ultimately, genuine happiness earned through the courage to finally choose herself. Her journey served as a powerful reminder that true love and lasting happiness begin first with recognizing and honoring one's own worth, a lesson she now carried forward into every aspect of her beautifully rebuilt life. As night settled softly over the city, Nadia looked around the cozy apartment she now called home, filled with genuine warmth, laughter, and love, and felt an overwhelming sense of peace and gratitude for the beautiful life she had built, one courageous step at a time.